One of the greatest challenges of life isn't deciding whether to change or stay the same. It's knowing what should remain stable and what is ready to change and evolve. In midlife, life doesn't ask us to become a completely different person. Instead, it asks us to recognize which parts of our lives have become the foundation we can continue building upon, and which parts are naturally changing as we move into a new season. This is exactly what this full moon in Aquarius is going to illuminate for us. On July 29, we have a full moon happening at 6 degrees Aquarius. In this video, I will talk about the energy of this full moon, who will feel it the most, and then I'll go through each of the 12 signs. So stay tuned to the end. If you have been here before, welcome back. And if you're new, a very warm welcome for you. My name is Christine. I'm Western and evolutionary astrologer and a life coach for women in midlife. I work with astrology as a practical tool for awareness, emotional growth, and making better decisions through one of the life's biggest transitions. If you enjoy this type of work, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. And if you would like to receive a daily moon guidance, weekly astrology, reflections and classes, guided meditation, practical tools, and much more, you can subscribe to the Evolving Self membership. Links are provided in the description box below. What does this full moon represent? Unlike a new moon, which begins a new chapter, a full moon represents completion, culmination, endings. It usually comes with clarity and revelation. It shines light on something that has been developing beneath the surface, and now it's reaching a turning point. So sometimes it comes through an event or realization or a conversation that you might have, or even a very deeper understanding of yourself. Full moons reveal what can no longer remain hidden. This is why the moon will be at its brightest light, shining and bringing awareness. Full moon can also bring decisions, but the main themes of full moon, they ask us to let go, something that no longer serves where life is taking us. This full moon, specifically on July 29, is happening in Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of freedom, future, innovation, individuality, community, or even authentic self-expression. Aquarius is known for its rebellious nature. It asks us to step outside the norm, the familiar patterns, and imagine a different future. It reminds us that growth begins the moment we're willing to think differently, choose differently, or finally allow ourselves to become the person that we have been quietly growing into. So this full moon is happening at 6 degrees in Aquarius. According to the degree theory, the 6 degrees carries the energy of Virgo. And Virgo is about continuous improvement, refinement. It's also about what we care about in our daily life, how we heal, how we become of service to others. Virgo is known for its attention to details, which also carries the analysis paralysis themes. While Aquarius dreams of the future, Virgo asks, what small change can I make every day that will help me create that future? Many people wait for one dramatic moment that changes everything, but Virgo is an earth sign that puts effort into place and reminds us that lasting transformation rarely happens overnight. It happens through small, repeated choices that you are making consistently every day. This specific full moon is asking you, what habits are supporting your future and what habits are quietly keeping you attached to the past? This full moon asks you to look at your life through that lens. Not everything is meant to change. Some parts of your life are inner foundations, your values, your wisdom, your life experience, the resilience that you have built your life upon, the lessons that you have learned over years. Those become stronger with time. They are the foundations that you carry with you wherever life takes you. But then there are what I call your life stage foundations. These are the parts of life that naturally change as you move through different seasons or different phases in your life. Your relationships, your friendships, your family dynamics, your career, your work, or even your financial foundation. For many of us in midlife, these external foundations are shifting all at once, or maybe for others, some of them are shifting gradually, and some are remaining stable as well, depending on where you are in life and what's going on in your life. Your children might become independent and decide to move out. Your parents might be aging and need more support. Some of your friendships might be evolving, some are endings, others are changing, and maybe new connections are being built in your life. Your long-term relationships even might be taking a deeper turn. It might come to an end, or new relationships might be beginning. You might change careers, direction, or you might even begin thinking seriously about retirement or taking a different way or path of work. Now, some people even start building a new business. Not to mention that many nowadays are thinking of relocating, and that could come with changing homes and communities as well, and so much more change than that. So even our financial stability continues to change, requiring us to rethink plans where we once believed were certain. When so many external foundations are moving, it's easy to feel as though everything is uncertain. But this full moon reminds us that uncertainty doesn't necessarily come with the feeling of instability. It may simply mean you are being asked to build your next chapter on the parts of yourself that do not change, the main stable parts. Those are the qualities that you have developed your life upon: your inner peace, believing in your strength and your ability to navigate changing experiences, your values, your integrity, your judgment, your resilience, your discernment, your ability to navigate solutions, adapt, and begin again. No market correction can take those away from you. No career change can erase them. Not even a relationship ending could diminish them. They are the inner foundation that you've been building your entire life upon, even if you haven't always seen that. Midlife has a way of testing our external foundations, but it also reveals the strength of our inner ones. The question is no longer, can I keep everything the same? The question becomes, what within me is strong enough to carry me through whatever changes next? Yet, because this full moon is happening at 6 degrees, it's carrying the energy of Virgo. So that is reminding us that change requires discernment. Discernment is different from judgment. Judgment asks, is this good or bad? Discernment says, is this right for me at this stage of my life? Because it could be right for you at a different stage as well. So as we move through different seasons of life, what once served us may no longer be the wisest choice where we are right now. Discernment is the ability to recognize that without any guilt. It allows us to adjust our priorities, protect our energy, invest our time where it will have the greatest value. Under this full moon, Aquarius asks you to look at the bigger picture, while Virgo asks you to make wiser decisions within that bigger picture. Together, they remind us that future is shaped by the choices we choose consciously every day. It's asking you to recognize what foundations are you standing on. One of the greatest aspects of this full moon, its conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius. So the moon will be in conjunct with Pluto, sitting at the sign of Aquarius. Wherever Pluto is involved, it is intense. Pluto shows us what life has reached at the end of its natural lifespan, just simply because we have outgrown it. So Pluto asks, what are you trying to preserve that has already begun to change? Sometimes it's a role you have identified with for decades. Sometimes it's the way you have been always defining success. Sometimes it's a relationship dynamic, or even the belief that our security depends on keeping life exactly as it is. This full moon may bring a realization that one of your life stage foundations is evolving. Not disappearing, just evolving. And that's an important distinction. Because Pluto rarely removes something without first asking us to reconsider our relationship with it first. Then it starts the change and replace it with something that will create a stronger structure. Women in midlife, many of the structures we have spent building naturally begin to take a different shape. The question is no longer whether those changes should happen, because Pluto doesn't ask for permission to make changes. The question is whether you are willing to work with Pluto and allow to make the changes and evolve with the process. This is where Pluto becomes incredibly powerful. It reminds us that stability isn't created by resisting change. It's created by allowing life to evolve while remaining deeply connected to the values, wisdom, and inner strength that does not need to change. Under this full moon, don't be surprised if you feel different. You may find yourself reacting more strongly than usual, looking over the end of a chapter in your life, or even the end of being in a certain way. Remember, moon represents your emotional foundation and your sense of safety, and Pluto is transformation. When these two come together, Pluto transforms the way you experience your emotions. So I want you to be very compassionate with yourself during this full moon. This is really a powerful opportunity to become aware of your emotional patterns that have quietly shaped your decisions for years. You may begin to realize where fear has kept you holding on, where control have been mistaken for security, or where familiar emotional responses have prevented you from embracing the next stage of your life. Aquarius adds a layer to this process. Aquarius is known for its detachment. Rather than being consumed by your emotions, Aquarius is inviting you to step back, observe them with greater objectivity. Instead of asking, why do I feel this way? Aquarius is inviting you to say or ask, what is this feeling trying to show me about myself and my life? At the same time, the sun will be in Leo, sitting opposite to Pluto and joined by Jupiter Cazimi. That reminds us that while one part of life is transforming, the other part is expanding. The sun in Leo represents your individuality, your vitality, your creative spirit, and your authentic self of being. It's asking you, who am I? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to express myself? With Jupiter Cazimi, this is amplified. The light of the sun is amplified. Jupiter magnifies the sun's qualities, bringing greater confidence because the sun is in Leo, optimism, vision, and renewed belief in what is possible for you. It's encouraging you to think bigger about your future, about your possibilities, trusting your abilities, stepping into the wisdom that you have gained through your life experiences. But it's sitting directly opposite to Pluto and the moon, reminding us that before we can fully embrace who we are becoming, we need to release an identity that no longer fits. This opposition is very powerful. Opposition are tensions. It's calling us to create a balance between the life that you have known and the life that's beginning to call you forward. On one side, imagine Pluto is asking you, what are you ready to outgrow? What is ready to leave your life? And on the other side, the Sun and Jupiter are asking, what are you ready to become? So one cannot happen without the other. At one chapter comes to an end, another one is asking you to move forward with courage and confidence and your willingness to be seen. It's meaning stripping away the expectations, responsibilities, identities that you have accumulated over years that no longer show or shine your true self more freely. Together, they're asking us to transform without abandoning our emotional or authentic self or even abandoning our responsibilities, because we will never abandon our responsibilities. It's actually embracing new possibilities with the wisdom that has brought us thus far. Now, this is why this full moon isn't simply about letting go. It's about standing between two versions of your life. One has brought you this far, and the other is quietly beginning to take shape. And whether you will be working with Pluto instead of resisting it, transformation feels like something is happening to you, but it's actually happening for you, because it becomes the process through which you constantly will rebuild the next chapter of your life. Now, talking about the other aspects during this full moon, we have a very supportive sextile from the full moon to Neptune in Aries. Now, after Pluto is asking us to release what we have outgrown, Neptune reminds us with a sextile, which is a very harmonious aspect, why the process is worth it. Because Neptune gives us faith in what we cannot yet see. Neptune in Aries, that faith becomes very personal. It's asking us to trust ourselves enough to take the first step. Even if we don't have the entire path mapped out in front of us, you don't need all the answers right now. You simply need enough courage to trust yourself. Another reason this full moon is so significant is because it arrives just few days after the North Node moves into Aquarius and the South Node moving into Leo. Now, the North Node represents our evolutionary path and our direction, our soul growing towards. Its recent move into Aquarius, the same sign that this full moon is taking place and the same sign that Pluto is sitting right now, adds greater significance to this lunation. It's as though this full moon is giving us our first glimpse of the path that will continue to unfold over the next 18 months. While the full moon brings awareness and closure, the North Node reminds us that every ending creates space for a new direction. It's about recognizing where life is to lead you next. Aquarius asks us to remain open to new ideas, new possibilities, new communities, new ways of contributing, new things that may not have existed in the previous chapter of your life. The full moon will ask you, are you willing to take the first step towards it, even if you cannot yet see the entire path? The ruler of this full moon is actually two. We have two rulers. Traditionally, it's ruled by Saturn, and in modern astrology, it's ruled by Uranus because it's Aquarius. Although they appear very different, Saturn and Uranus, they are actually working together through this full moon. Saturn builds, Uranus change. Saturn gives us structure and stability. And Uranus shows us where that structure has become too limiting and where it needs to evolve. So together they describe the main theme of this full moon, which is balancing stability with change. Now let's talk about Uranus first. Uranus is now in Gemini, forming a very harmonious trine to the moon itself and a sextile to the sun. This is one of the most supportive aspects of this entire lunation because it's reminding us that change doesn't always arrive through disruption, which is the theme of Uranus. Sometimes it begins with a new idea, a different conversation, a question that you have never asked yourself before, or finally seeing a situation from a completely different perspective. Gemini rules the mind, learning, communication, curiosity. Uranus shakes up the way you think before it changes the way you live. Because Uranus remains within this powerful 4-degree activation during this full moon, that we have been following, by the way, this 4-degree activation over the past several weeks. Make sure to listen to these videos. It will give you more information. So with Uranus at 4 degree, it's continuing to open the doors that might not have existed before. Pay attention to the conversations that you have around this full moon. It could completely change the direction that you're heading to. Now, the second ruler is Saturn, and Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, offers you the grounding that Uranus needs. While Uranus opens new possibilities and new doors, Saturn is asking you prepared to take this opportunity and build something that will last. Because Saturn is now in retrograde in Aries by the time we have this full moon, and that turns our attention inwards. It asks us to examine the decisions we are making before taking any action to ensure what we are building something that will be based on our thoughtful choices. One final influence that deserves our attention is Mercury has recently turned direct in Cancer after several weeks of retrograde motion and now forms a square to Saturn in Aries. This aspect reminds us that understanding something and acting on it are not always the same thing. You may feel mentally clear about what needs to happen next, yet you need some time to organize your thoughts, adjust your plans, have important conversations. Mercury in Cancer encourages us to think with both our head and our heart. Sometimes Saturn asks us to make sure that those thoughts can stand the test of time, because Saturn is about testing and time. If any important decisions doesn't happen immediately, don't assume that you're falling behind. Sometimes clarity arrives first and commitment follows next. Now, who will feel this full moon the most? The fixed signs will feel this full moon most strongly. So Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio, especially anyone with personal planets or angles between 2 degrees and 10 degrees of these signs, you might experience this full moon in the most personal way. The fixed signs are associated with stability, commitment, maintaining what has been built. It's not easy to move. They are the signs that know how to endure, preserve, and stay the course. This is why this full moon may feel especially significant for you if you have your sun, moon, or rising sign in those signs I mentioned. It may bring a moment where you recognize that something you have invested time and energy into is ready for a new direction. For Aquarius and Leo, this may highlight questions around identity, purpose, visibility, the future that you might want to create. For Taurus and Scorpio on the other side, it might bring awareness around security, attachments, resources, or what you truly need to feel stable. For everyone else, this full moon offers a moment to reflect on the same questions I've been saying. what in your life deserves to remain and what is ready to evolve, and how can I maintain stability during the change, because the wisdom of midlife learning is stability does not come from keeping everything the same. Stability comes from knowing that within you remains constant where life around you is evolving. Now I'm going to go through each of the 12 signs. Make sure to listen to your rising sign. If you want to listen to your moon or sun sign, please do so. But be mindful that this will be from a guidance perspective, because the rising sign will tell you exactly which area in your life this full moon will take place and what does it mean for you. For Aries, this full moon is happening in your 11th house, the house of friendships, communities, social connections, future goals, dreams, the vision you have for your life that you want to create. The 11th house is not only about who surrounds you, it's also representing the future version of yourself and the goals that you're moving towards. So it asks, who are you becoming and what kind of people, communities, or goals support that version of you? With this full moon conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius, this becomes a very powerful moment of transformation around your relationship with your future. Pluto in the 11th house can reveal where your connections, friendships, or communities you are part with no longer reflect who you are becoming. Some relationships may naturally evolve, some friendships may deepen because they support your growth, while others may feel different because you're no longer the same person you were when those connections were created in the past. This is not about losing people. It's about recognizing who you are belonging with now. The moon represents your emotional security, and when Pluto joins the moon, you may become much more aware of your emotional relationship with belonging. You may ask yourself, am I staying connected to those connections and goals because this relationship still nourishes me, or this goal is still aligned with me, or because it represents version of my past? The opposite of this full moon sits the Sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your 5th house. This creates a powerful tension between your 11th and your 5th house, between the collective, the groups, the friendships, the goals, and between you as an individual. The 5th house represents your creativity, your joy, your passions, your confidence, the part of you that wants to shine. Jupiter Cazimi with the Sun amplifies this energy for you. It reminds you that your future cannot only be built around what others need from you or where you fit within a group. This is the part of you that wants to create, express, and be recognized for who you truly are. The question becomes, can I belong without losing myself? The full moon asks you to balance your need for community with your need for personal expression. Adding support to this is Neptune in Aries in your 1st house, sextiling this full moon. Neptune in your identity house is changing the way you see yourself. You may be developing a new image of who you are, but this process requires trust. You may not have every detail figured out yet, but you can sense that you are moving towards something more aligned with yourself. Neptune asks you to listen to your intuition about who you are becoming. Finally, Uranus is in Gemini in your 3rd house, trining the moon, the full moon, which brings new ideas, new conversations, new learning opportunities, and information that can change your perspective. Aries, this full moon may begin with a conversation, a new idea, a new person entering your life, a new realization that changes how you see your future, with Pluto transforming your community and your connections and your friendships, Jupiter expanding your creativity, Neptune reshaping your identity, and Uranus opening your mind, because your future is not only created by what you achieve, it's also created by who you choose to connect with. Taurus, this full moon is happening in your 10th house. It's an angular house. It's the house of career, reputation, achievements, responsibilities, the role you play in the outside world. The 10th house represents the structures that you built over time. It reflects not only your profession or career, but also your definition of success and the legacy that you want to create and leave behind. The full moon is asking an important question. Is this life you built aligned or still aligned with the person you have become? With the full moon conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius in your 10th house, this is a powerful time of transformation around your career path, public identity, your long-term goals. Pluto asks if your definition of success is still aligned with you at that current stage of your life. There may be a realization that the way you have measured achievement, recognition, security is changing. A career path that once gave you purpose may need to evolve. A role that you carried for years may no longer represent who you are today. This does not necessarily mean leaving everything behind. Pluto works through transformation. So sometimes it's a complete career shifts, and another times it's changing your relationship with this career. Sometimes it's stepping into more authority, influence, visibility after years of building experience, or even sometimes it's stepping down. The moon represents your emotional foundation and your need for security. When Pluto joins the moon in your 10th house, changes in your outer life can deeply affect how you feel about yourself. So you might find yourself asking, who am I if I'm no longer defined by what I do? This is especially important because you might have spent years building stability, providing for others, creating something dependable. Pluto reminds you that your value was never only connected to your achievements. Opposite to this full moon is the sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your 4th house, the house of home, family, emotional roots, and your private life. This creates a powerful balance between your outer world and your inner world. The 10th house is asking you, what am I building in my world? And the 4th house is asking you, what gives me a sense of belonging and emotional security? With Jupiter Cazimi beside the sun in Leo, your personal life, home environment, family, emotional foundation may be expanding. You may feel a stronger desire to create a life that feels meaningful and private, not just impressive and public. This opposition reminds you success cannot only be measured by what other people see, but by fulfilling a life that requires both achievement and emotional nourishment. The question becomes, am I building a life that looks successful or a life that actually feels successful? Adding another layer is Neptune in your Aries, in your 12th house, sextiling the moon and Pluto. Neptune in your 12th house brings attention to your inner world, your unconscious patterns, your intuition, your emotional beliefs that quietly influence your choices. This can be a time when you become aware of hidden motivations behind your ambitions. Are you pursuing something because it truly inspires you or because you're trying to prove something? Neptune asks you to reconnect with a deeper sense of purpose beyond the external recognition. Finally, Uranus is in Gemini in your 2nd house, trines the moon, the full moon. Uranus is especially important because Taurus, you have been experiencing Uranus moving through your sign for several years, changing your relationship with stability, identity, security. Now that Uranus moved in your 2nd house in Gemini, that brings new ideas about money and resources and personal values. A new foundational approach, a new different income stream, a new skill, or a different way of valuing yourself may emerge. This breakthrough may come through changing how you think about money and security. This full moon is not asking you to abandon the stability that you have created. It's actually asking you to update it. With Pluto transforming your career, Jupiter expanding your private life, Neptune reconnecting you with your deeper purpose, and Uranus changing your relationship with resources, this full moon asks, does the life you're building reflect the person you have become or only the person you used to be? Because the next chapter is not about proving your worth, it's about creating the life that honors it. Gemini, this full moon is happening in your 9th house, the house of higher learning, wisdom, beliefs, spirituality, travel, publishing, teaching, or the search for greater understanding of life. 9th house is where you expand beyond what you already know. It represents the experiences that challenge your perspective and allow you to see life from a bigger picture. This full moon is asking you, is the way I see my life still big enough for who I am becoming? With the full moon conjuncting Pluto and Aquarius in your 9th house, this becomes a very powerful moment of transformation around your beliefs, your worldwide, your direction, your life is taking next. Pluto in the 9th house often reveals beliefs that have quietly shaped your choices for years. Some beliefs were inherited from family, some came from your culture, some were created from past experiences. But Pluto is asking you, do you still believe this because it's true for you today or because it was once true for you? Gemini, this can be a profound time of changing your understanding of what is possible. You may question an old belief about success, relationships, aging, purpose, or what your future should look like. This does not mean rejecting everything you believed before. Pluto does not erase your wisdom you have built over years. It transforms your knowledge into a deeper wisdom. The moon represents your emotional security, and when Pluto joins the moon, you might feel emotionally impacted by a certain realization or a new perspective or an experience that changes how you understand your own journey. Something you once saw one way may suddenly look completely different now. You may realize, I cannot continue living from an old belief system that no longer represents me. Opposite this full moon sits the Sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your third house, the house of communication, learning, information, and your immediate environment. This creates a powerful conversation between the ninth and the third house. The third house asks, what information am I absorbing every day? And the ninth house asks, what larger truth am I building from that information? With Jupiter Cazimi beside the Sun in Leo, your voice becomes amplified. This is an excellent signature for sharing ideas, teaching, writing, speaking, creating content, or expressing a perspective that comes from your own life experience. After years of collecting knowledge, you may feel ready to communicate what you have already learned. But Pluto, opposite this energy, asks for authenticity, not just repeating what you know, but sharing what you have personally transformed through this knowledge. The question becomes, what wisdom have I earned that is ready to be shared? Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your 11th house, sextiling the full moon. Neptune in your house of communities and friendships and future goals brings inspiration around the people you connect with and the collective you want to contribute to. You may feel drawn towards a new community, a new cause, people who share your evolving vision or a new goal or even a new friendship. But Neptune also asks for discernment. Are you connecting with people who inspire your growth, or are you staying connected to these groups that belong to an earlier version of yourself? Finally, Uranus in Gemini in your first house trines the moon. And this is especially significant because Uranus is moving through your own sign. Uranus is in the first house, is changing your identity. It's asking you to become more authentic, more independent, and less attached to previous definitions or versions of yourself. The trine to the full moon suggests that changing your perspective may be the key that unlocks your next chapter, a new idea, a new skill, a new way of presenting yourself, a new understanding of who you are, or simply about learning something new. It's about becoming someone new through what you learn. With Pluto transforming your beliefs, Jupiter expanding your voice, Neptune inspiring your future connections, Uranus awakening your identity, this full moon asks, what truth have you discovered about yourself that you are finally ready to live by and share with others? Because the future you are creating begins with the perspective you choose to carry forward. Cancer, this full moon is happening in your 8th house, the house of shared resources, intimacy, trust, emotional bonds, transformation, the need for deeper psychological patterns that influence how you merge your life with others. The 8th house is where you learn that security is not only about what you have control over, it's also about your ability to trust, adapt, and navigate the changes that happen when life asks you to move beyond what feels familiar. This full moon is asking you, who am I still trying to control because I don't yet trust the process of the change? Who or what, actually? With the full moon conjuncting your Pluto in Aquarius in your 8th house, this becomes one of the most powerful areas of transformation for you. Cancer, because Pluto is in the 8th house, brings awareness to the deeper layer of your emotional and financial life. You can reveal where you have been carrying fears about security, dependence, vulnerability, or shared responsibilities. Sometimes believe we are holding onto something because it's valuable. But Pluto asks a deeper question. Are you protecting something that truly supports you? Or are you protecting yourself from the uncertainty of change? Because the moon rules Cancer, this full moon has an extra significance for you, Cancer. The moon represents your emotional foundation, your instant responses, your sense of safety, and the patterns you develop to protect yourself. With Pluto joining the moon, it can feel like an emotional reset for you. So you might become extra sensitive during this full moon. You might become aware of the patterns that have quietly influenced your decisions over years, where you have taken on too much responsibility, where you have fear depending on others, where you have confused emotional control with emotional security. This is not about becoming detached. It's about becoming more empowered. Pluto in Aquarius asks you to transform your relationship with power, especially the power you have given away when you believe your safety depends on outer circumstances or people or external guarantees. Opposite to this full moon sits the Sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your 2nd house. The 2nd house is the house of personal resources, self-worth, values, financial independence. This creates a powerful conversation for you between the 8th house, what you share with others, and the 2nd house, what belongs only to you. While Jupiter Cazimi beside the Sun in Leo, there is an expansion of your awareness around your own abilities, talents, and resources. This energy reminds you that your security is not only created through what you receive from others, it's also created through recognizing your own value and worth. The question becomes, am I building security from my own strength or only from what I can hold on to externally? This can bring a shift in how you view money and see investments and shared resources or dependence within relationships. It encourages a healthier balance between receiving support and maintaining your own sense of capability. Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your 10th house, sextiling the full moon. Neptune in your career house, bringing a changing vision around your public life and your contribution to the world. You may feel called towards work that feels more meaningful, creative, or aligned with your deeper values. Sextile to the moon suggests that emotional healing and career directions are connected at this time. Sometimes when we transform internally, our outer direction naturally begins to change. So finally, you've got Uranus in Gemini in your 12th house, trining the full moon. Uranus in the 12th house works quietly behind the scenes. It can bring sudden insights, awareness, breakthrough around unconscious patterns. You may suddenly understand why you have responded to certain situations in a particular way for years. A hidden fear might be visible. An emotional pattern may lose its power over you. The breakthrough might not come from forcing change. It might come from seeing yourself differently. With Pluto transforming your emotional and shared foundations, Jupiter expanding your personal resources, Gemini inspiring you in a very new direction, and Uranus awakening hidden parts of yourself, this full moon is asking you, what would change if you trusted yourself as much as you have been trusting the things that you were trying to hold onto? Because true security is not created by controlling every outcome. It's created by knowing you have the strength to navigate whatever evolves. Leo, this full moon is happening in your 7th house, the house of relationships, partnerships, marriage, significant others, contracts, clients, and the people who mirror important parts of yourself back to you. The 7th house is where you meet the other. It represents not only romantic relationships, but also the important connections that shape your life, the people you choose to build with, collaborate with, share your life and your life journey with. This full moon is asking you, are your relationships supporting the person you are becoming, or are they keeping you connected to who you used to be? With the full moon conjuncting Pluto and Aquarius in your 7th house, relationships become an area of deep transformation. Pluto does not create change simply for the sake of change. It reveals the truth underneath the surface. This might bring awareness around relationships dynamics that have developed over time. Where have you been compromising too much? Where have you been carrying more responsibility than your share? Where have you been trying to maintain peace by ignoring your own needs? Pluto in the 7th house can transform the way you relate to others by changing the relationship you have with yourself. Because the moon represents emotional security, this conjunction may bring powerful emotional realizations about what you need from your partner. You might recognize that the definition of a secure relationship you carried years ago may no longer fit the person you are becoming today. This does not automatically mean that relationship would end. Sometimes Pluto transforms relationships by removing old patterns in the relationship so something stronger can be created. A relationship can evolve. The way you communicate with your partner can evolve. The expectations within a relationship and partnership can evolve. The question that Pluto is asking you, can this relationship grow with me, or am I shrinking myself to keep it the same way? Opposite to this full moon, you have the Sun in Leo conjunct Jupiter Cazimi in your 1st house. And this is very powerful placement for you because the Sun is in your chart ruler. This creates a direct opposition between the 1st house, which is you, your identity, your individuality, and the 7th house, which is your relationships and the people you share your life with. With Jupiter Cazimi amplifying in your sign, there is a strong invitation to reconnect with yourself, your confidence, your creativity, your personal vision, your desire to be fully expressed. This energy reminds you that healthy relationships do not require you to disappear. They should allow you to become aware of yourself. The question becomes, can I honor my relationship commitments while still honoring who I am? This full moon may highlight the balance between being part of a partnership and relationship and maintaining your own individuality within this relationship. Supporting this process is Neptune in Aries in your ninth house, sextiling the moon. Neptune in the ninth house expands your vision of life. It encourages you to reconnect with your beliefs, your dreams, your sense of purpose beyond your current circumstances. Sometimes relationship transformations happen because your vision for life has changed. You might want different experiences, different lifestyle, different future. Neptune asks you to trust the inner calling that is guiding you towards a more meaningful direction. Finally, Uranus is in Gemini in your 11th house, trines this full moon. Uranus brings unexpected connections, new communities, different perspectives. This suggests that your friendships, your social circles, future goals may introduce new possibilities that change how you think about relationships and belonging. A new connection could open your mind. A different community could show you another way of living. A new idea about your future could change what you need from your partnerships. With Pluto transforming your relationships, Jupiter expanding your identity, Neptune reshaping your vision, Uranus opening new social possibilities for you, this full moon is asking you, are your relationships making space for the person that you are becoming? Because the next chapter of your life is not asking you to choose between yourself and others, it's asking you to create connections where both can exist. Virgo, this full moon is happening in your sixth house, the house of daily routines, work, health, responsibilities, habits, and the small changes and choices that quietly shape your quality of your life. The sixth house is often associated with productivity, but at a deeper level, it's asking much more important question during this full moon. Does the way I spend my time reflects the life I'm trying to build? Every routine, every commitment, every responsibility is either supporting your future or quietly pulling you away from it. With a full moon in your sixth house conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius, this becomes a very powerful time of transformation around the way you manage your everyday life. Pluto asks you to look honestly at the routines you have built over the years. Not every habit deserves to come with you in the next chapter of your life. Sometimes routines were created when your children were young. Others were built around the demands of a career. Some were shaped by circumstances that no longer exist in your life today. So the question is no longer whether those routines once worked. The question is, do they still support the woman you are becoming or the person you are becoming today? Because the moon represents your emotional well-being, Pluto conjuncting may also reveal how your emotional state has been affecting your physical well-being, your energy levels, your daily choices. You may suddenly recognize where you have been running on autopilot, where you have continued saying yes out of habit, where you have become so busy managing life that you have stopped asking yourself whether those daily routines still reflects who you are, especially with your health priorities. This is not about becoming more productive. It's about becoming more intentional with your time. Opposite to this full moon sits the sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your 12th house. This creates a powerful balance between your outer responsibilities and your inner world. The sixth house asks you, how do you care for your responsibilities? The 12th house asks you how you care for yourself. With Jupiter Cazimi beside the sun, your inner life is asking for attention. This may be a time of profound inner growth, healing, spiritual reflection, and simply recognizing that rest is not something you earn after everything is finished. It's part of maintaining your well-being and health. The question becomes, am I giving as much attention to renewing myself as I do to fulfilling my responsibilities? Supporting with this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your 8th house, sextiling the moon. Neptune encourages you to develop greater trust around changes taking place in your life, whether they involve finances, shared responsibilities, emotional healing, deeper personal transformation. Neptune reminds you that not every answer arrives through analysis. Some answers emerge when you allow yourself to trust the process. Finally, Uranus in Gemini is in your 10th house, trines the moon. Uranus brings innovation, new possibilities in your career and public life, a new professional opportunity, a different direction, a new technology, or simply a fresh perspective on the work you begin to shape your life. You may start your own online presence or continue to grow into an existing one. As your outer life evolves, your daily routines will need to evolve with it. This is where the full moon brings together everything. If your career is changing, your schedule may need to change as well. If your time is changing, your habits need to reflect those priorities and those time schedules. If your vision for the future is changing, the way you spend your time today has to support that future. So with Pluto transforming your routines, Jupiter expanding your inner life, Neptune deepening your trust, and Uranus opening new professional possibilities, this full moon is asking you, are your daily choices supporting the life you want to create and the life you want to live? Or are they keeping you committed to a season of life that has already passed? Because your future is not built by occasional big decisions, it's built by the small decisions and choices you make every day. Libra, this full moon is happening in your fifth house, the house of creativity, joy, romance, hobbies, self-expression, passion, children, and the things that make you feel joy and alive. The fifth house reminds you that life is not only about responsibilities and obligations. It's also about creating a life you genuinely enjoy living. The full moon is asking you, when was the last time you did something simply because it brought you joy? The fifth house is one of the areas that quietly gets neglected. Years are spent building careers, raising families, caring for others, meeting responsibilities. Somewhere along that way, personal passions and creativity and simple enjoyment can slowly move to the bottom of the list. While the full moon conjunct Pluto in Aquarius in your fifth house, this area in your life is ready to evolve. Pluto asks you to look beneath the surface. Have you outgrown the things that once brought you happiness? Or have you simply forgotten to make room for them? Sometimes the transformation isn't about finding a new passion. It's about giving yourself permission to reconnect with the parts of yourself that have been waiting patiently for your own attention. Because the moon represents your emotional worth, Pluto conjunction can also reveal where you have attached your sense of worth to being productive, responsible, or needed. The full moon reminds you that joy is not a luxury, it's part of a balanced life. If you have been living almost entirely through your responsibilities, Pluto may ask you to transform that pattern, not by abandoning your responsibilities or commitments, but by making space for yourself within those commitments and responsibilities. Opposite to this full moon sits the Sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your 11th house, the house of friendships, community, future goals, the life you are building forward. So this creates a beautiful balance between your personal happiness and the future vision. The fifth house asks you, what brings me joy today? And the 11th house is asking you, what kind of future am I creating? With Jupiter Cazimi amplifying the Sun, your future is expanding. New friendships, supportive communities, opportunities, or long-term goals may begin to open doors for you. But Jupiter also reminds you that your future should not only be successful, it should be fulfilling. The question becomes, am I creating a future that fulfills me or just works for everyone else? Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your 7th house, sextiling the full moon. Neptune brings compassion, inspiration, and new vision into your relationships. As you reconnect with yourself, your relationship may naturally begin to evolve as well. Healthy relationships allow room for both people to continue growing. So Neptune asks you to remain open to new ways of reconnecting, communicating, supporting one another without losing your individuality. Finally, Uranus in Gemini in your 9th house trines the moon. Uranus opens your mind to new experiences, new ideas, travel, learning, teaching, completely different perspective on life. Sometimes all it takes is one conversation, one book, one course, or one journey to remind you that life still has so much to offer you. This trine encourages you to step beyond familiar routines and allow yourself to explore something that inspires you again. With Pluto transforming your joy and creativity, Jupiter expanding your future, Neptune bringing your possibilities into your relationships, Uranus broadening your perspective, this full moon asks, what part of yourself have you been postponing until one day? Because one of the greatest gifts of midlife is realizing that your responsibilities may continue, but your life deserves to be lived as well. Scorpio, this full moon is happening in your 4th house, the house of home, family, roots, emotional security, your private life, and the foundations upon which everything else in your life is built. This is one of the most significant full moons of the year for you because 4th house isn't just about where you live. It represents the place you return to emotionally. It reflects the sense of belonging, your family dynamics, your connection to the past, your inner foundation that supports every other area of your life. With the moon conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius in your fourth house, something within those foundations is ready to transform. For some of you, this may coincide with changes around your home, family, or living situation. For others, the transformation is more internal. You may begin seeing your family dynamics differently, recognizing emotional patterns you have carried for years, or realizing that your definition of security has quietly changed. Pluto asks, what foundation are you trying to preserve that has already begun to evolve? As we move through midlife, the meaning of home often changes. Children leave home, parents require more care, relationships shift, and some people relocate. Others begin creating a home that finally reflects who they are today rather than who they were 20 or 10 years ago. Pluto doesn't ask you to erase the past. It asks you to build a stronger future without remaining emotionally attached to foundations that no longer fully support the life that you're creating now. Opposite to this full moon is the sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your 10th house of career, purpose, reputation, achievement, and the legacy that you are building in the world. While your private life is evolving, your public life is expanding. Jupiter Cazimi can bring new opportunities, greater visibility, leadership, or renewed sense of purpose. Some of you may be stepping into a professional role, redefining retirement, starting a business, or discovering a different way to contribute to your experiences. This opposition asks you to balance your inner world with your outer ambitions. Success feels very different when your emotional foundation no longer supports it. Likewise, creating a peaceful home becomes easier when your outer life reflects who you are becoming. Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your sixth house, forming a harmonious sextile. Neptune reminds you that stability is also created through the way you care for yourself every day. Your routines, your health, your work-life balance, and the small choices you make every day either strengthen your foundation or slowly drain you. This is a beautiful time for you to create daily habits that support the next chapter of your life rather than continuing routines that belong to a previous one. At the same time, you have Uranus and Gemini in your 8th house, trining this full moon, bringing new perspectives around shared resources, finances, emotional intimacy, and the deeper psychological changes taking place beneath the surface. Unexpected solutions may appear around financial planning, retirement, investments, inheritances, or the support you receive from others. More importantly, Uranus helps you releasing emotional attachments that have kept you feeling responsible for carrying burdens that no longer belong to you. The full moon reminds you that true security isn't created by keeping everything exactly the same. It's created by knowing which foundations deserve to remain and which ones are naturally evolving into something stronger. The question this full moon is asking you, as your external foundations change, what inner foundations have you built that no circumstances can take away from you? Sagittarius, this full moon is happening in your 3rd house, the house of mind, communication, learning, siblings, your local environment, and most importantly, the way you think about yourself and your life. The 3rd house represents the conversations you have every day, not only with other people, but with yourself as well. Because before we change our life, we almost change the way we think. With the moon conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius in your 3rd house, this full moon is transforming your mindset. You may suddenly recognize the story you've been telling yourself for years. Perhaps you've convinced yourself that it's too late to start over, or you're too old to learn something new, or that your role in life has already been decided. Certain opportunities simply aren't meant for you. Now, Pluto is asking you, are those facts or are these beliefs you have outgrown? Because sometimes the greatest transformation doesn't begin with changing your circumstances. It begins with changing the story you have been telling yourself and you have been living. The full moon may also bring important conversations, new information, realization that completely shifts the way you think and your perspective. A single conversation, a book, a course, or something you hear around the time of this full moon could change the direction that you are heading towards. Opposite to this full moon is the sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your 9th house, the house of higher learning, wisdom, travel, publishing, spirituality, and your vision of the world. While Pluto transforms the way you think, Jupiter expands the way you see your life. The 3rd house asks, what have I been telling myself? The 9th house asks, what becomes possible if I think bigger. Jupiter Kazemi can open doors through education, teaching, writing, travel, legal matters, or opportunities that broaden your world. For many Sagittarius, this may feel like a renewed sense of purpose, as though life is inviting you to keep growing rather than settling in familiar routines. Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your fifth house, forming harmonious sextile. Neptune encourages you to reconnect with inspiration, creativity, joy, the part of yourself that still dreams. As your thinking begins to change, your creative life may begin changing with it as well. You may feel drawn towards a hobby, artistic project. Romance is simply allowing yourself to enjoy life again without feeling you always have to be productive. At the same time, Uranus in Gemini in your seventh house, trining the full moon, bringing fresh energy into your relationships. A partner, close friend, a mentor, or even someone may challenge your thinking in ways that will help you grow. Some relationships may evolve because you are evolving. Others may enter your life because they reflect the direction you are now moving towards. This full moon reminds you that one conversation can change your perspective, one idea can change your decisions, and one new decision can change the direction of your life. The question of this full moon is asking you, if you stopped repeating the story that you've always told yourself, what new future could become possible? Capricorn, this full moon is happening in your second house, the house of money, personal resources, values, self-worth, talents, foundations of your personal security. This is one of the most important houses for the overall theme of this full moon. Because we've been talking about balancing stability with change, the second house asks a very simple but profound question. What does security mean to you now at this stage in your life? Because the answer to that question could change. Security may have once meant building a successful career, owning a house, raising a family, reaching certain financial goals. These things still matter, but this full moon invites you to look deeper. With the full moon conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius in your second house, your relationship with security is transforming. For some of you, this may coincide with changes around income, investments, retirement planning, financial priorities. This Pluto transforming something even more fundamental, your sense of self-worth. Pluto asks, what have you been relying on to feel secure? And is it still enough for the next chapter of your life? Sometimes we become emotionally attached to the belief that our value comes from what we achieve, produce, earn, or provide. Pluto begins stripping away those old definitions to help you discover a stronger foundation that isn't dependent on external circumstances. Because the moon represents emotional security, this full moon may bring powerful awareness around fears connected to money, stability, or your future. Rather than avoiding those feelings, Pluto asks you to look beneath the surface. Often the deepest transformation isn't happening in your bank account. It's happening in your relationship with what makes you feel safe. Opposite to this full moon is the sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Kazemi in your eighth house, the house of shared finances, investments, pensions, inheritances, taxes, intimacy, trust, and emotional transformation. While your personal resources are evolving, your eighth house asks you to examine how your shared resources receive support and plan for the future. Jupiter Kazemi may bring opportunities through financial planning, investments, retirement decisions, or support from others. It can also expand your understanding of trust. Recognizing that true strength doesn't always mean carrying everything alone, this opposition asks you to balance what is yours with what you share with others. Your independence with your willingness to receive, your personal security with your long-term financial strategy. Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your fourth house, forming a harmonious sextile. Neptune softens this emotional process by helping you reconnect with what truly feels like home, whether that's creating a more peaceful living environment, healing family relationships, simply finding greater emotional peace within yourself. Neptune reminds me that security is built emotionally as much as financially. At the same time, Uranus and Gemini in your sixth house trines the full moon, bringing positive changes to your daily work, routines, health, and the way you see your life. A new work opportunity, a different schedule, new skills, healthier habits may create greater stability than continuing to do things the way you've always done them. Some practical changes made now can have a significant impact over time. This full moon reminds you that lasting security isn't created by holding on to old definitions of success. It's created by building your future on what truly holds value for you. So the question of this full moon becomes, are you building your sense of security around what you have or around the person you have become? Aquarius, this full moon is happening in your first house, the house of identity, your physical body, your outlook on life, your independence, and the way you show up in the world. A full moon in the first house often marks a personal turning point. It brings clarity about who you have become, especially after a time of gradual inner change that may have not been obvious to anyone else except you. This isn't simply about changing your appearance or making new beginnings. It's about recognizing that you are no longer the same person you were, and your life can no longer be built around an identity that you have outgrown. With the moon conjuncting Pluto and Aquarius in your first house, this transformation becomes deeply personal for you. Pluto is asking you to release an old version of yourself. Perhaps you have continued carrying responsibilities, expectations, or labels that no longer reflect who you are. Perhaps you have been introducing yourself to the world through achievements, roles, identities that belong to an earlier chapter and stage of your life. Pluto is asking you, who are you when you stop defining yourself with who you always have been? Because the moon represents your emotional world, this full moon feels more intense than usual. You may notice yourself responding differently to situations that never used to bother you before. So be very compassionate with yourself during this full moon. You may feel a stronger desire to protect your time, your energy, or your space. You may simply realize that you have changed, or you're no longer willing to keep living according to expectations that no longer fit you anymore. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's allowing the person you have already become to finally take the lead. Opposite to this full moon is the Sun in Leo conjuncting Jupiter Cazimi in your seventh house, the house of relationships, marriage, partnerships, significant one-on-one connections. As you are changing, your relationships are naturally changing as well. Some relationships will grow alongside you, and others may require new boundaries, healthier connections, healthier communications, or a different balance between giving and receiving. Jupiter Cazimi expands this area of your life, bringing opportunities through supportive people, meaningful partnerships, or relationships that encourage your growth rather than keep you tied to the past. This opposition reminds you that every relationship reflects something about your own identity. As you become clearer about who you are, the people around you often respond differently as well. Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your third house, forming a harmonious sextile. Neptune softens this intensity of Pluto by helping you trust your inner voice. You may receive insights through conversations, journaling, writing, learning, quiet moments of reflection. Pay attention to what inspires you around this full moon time. A simple idea or conversation could help you understand yourself in a completely different way. At the same time, Uranus in Gemini in your fifth house trines the moon, encouraging you to rediscover joy, creativity, romance, self-expression. As you let go of an outdated identity, Uranus is reminding you that life is also meant to be enjoyed. You may feel inspired to explore a creative project, return to a forgotten passion that you used to have, or simply express yourself more freely without worrying about how others will see you or respond to you. This full moon reminds you that identity isn't something you create once and keep forever. It evolves as you evolve. The person who built the first half of your life may not be the same person who is meant to build the next. The question of this full moon is asking you, if you stopped introducing yourself through your past, who would you become from this moment forward? Pisces, this full moon is happening in your 12th house, the house of closures, healing, unconscious mind, spirituality, solitude, and the parts of yourself that operate behind the scenes. The 12th house is often described as the final chapter before a new cycle begins. Before your next full moon taking place in your first house, 6 months from now, this lunation is preparing you for a completely different personal chapter. Before life asks you to move forward, it first is asking you right now to release what you have been carrying, what you have outgrown. With the full moon conjuncting Pluto in Aquarius in your 12th house, this becomes a very deeply internal process. Not every transformation is visible. Some of the most important transformation happens quietly beneath the surface, long before anybody else notices them. Pluto is bringing awareness to your emotional patterns, your fears, your memories, your beliefs that have quietly influenced your decisions for years. Perhaps you've been carrying responsibility that no longer belong to you. Perhaps you've been holding on to guilt, regret, disappointment, or expectations that were never really yours to begin with. Or perhaps you've been simply living according to an older version of yourself that has completed its purpose. Pluto asks, what are you still carrying that life has been asking you to put down? Because the moon represents your emotional foundation, this full moon may bring powerful dreams, memories, unexpected emotions, moments of deep insight. Rather than pushing those feelings away, allow yourself to observe them. Sometimes awareness itself is the beginning of healing. Opposite to this full moon is the sun in Leo, conjuncting Jupiter Kazemi in your sixth house, the house of your daily routine, your work, your health, the practical structure of everyday life. While Pluto is helping you release the past, the sun and Jupiter are helping you to build a healthier future. This is a beautiful time for you to improve your health, your routine, strengthen your health patterns, organize your daily life, create habits that better support the person you are becoming. Sometimes the greatest transformation doesn't begin with one dramatic decision. It begins with changing what you do every day. Supporting this full moon is Neptune in Aries in your second house, forming a harmonious sextile. As your emotional foundations shift, so may your relationship with your self-worth and security, especially financial security. Neptune encourages you to place greater trust in your own abilities, your values, and the unique gifts that you have developed throughout your life experiences. It reminds you that security isn't only measured by what you own or what you earn. It's also built through confidence in yourself and your ability to adapt whatever life brings next. At the same time, Uranus and Gemini in your fourth house trines the moon, bringing supportive change to your home, family life, emotional foundations, or where you live. For some of you, this may bring opportunities to relocate, renovate, redefine family patterns, or create a home environment that better reflects who you are today. For others, the change is more internal, a new understanding of what home is, belonging, and emotional safety truly means. So this full moon reminds you that closures create room for something new to emerge. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do isn't to keep pushing forward, it's to release what no longer belongs in your life where you are prepared to build next. So the question of this full moon is, what are you ready to leave behind so you can step into your next chapter with a lighter heart and a stronger foundation? As we move through this full moon, remember that stability and change are not opposites, they work together. True stability comes from knowing what is worth holding on to and having the courage to let the rest evolve. May this full moon bring you the clarity, the wisdom, the discernment to recognize the difference. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, take a good care of yourself. Trust your inner voice. If this message resonated with you, please consider like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.